Alrighty guys, how y'all doing today?
Good!
Excellent, excellent. My name is Zach. I'm going to be talking about industrial pollution. This is something that goes on in our common day, and not a lot of people know about it, and I just want to inform you guys about something to help prevent further damage to our environment, our bodies, and people we know. So, the first thing I'm going to start you guys off with is a little poem that I wrote about industrial pollution. Has a lot to do with industrialization, what goes on, who reduces our industrial pollution, and furthermore. So, I'm going to start. The skies turn gray and the environment grows weak. Industrialization has reached its peak. The pollutants produced take a toll on your body. Chemicals mix due to that sun, that body. So we must gather together and stop our old ways to help reduce emission and get rid of the haze. Support the EPA and all that they do, where they stand up for your health and always pull through. Their tests are accurate and guidelines are right, so more government money should go to the EPA and help stop the pollution of our planet, okay? Hope you guys like my
Yeah! That was good!
Alrighty, getting on to more, a little bit more informative of what we're talking about today. So, factory pollutants is something that affects our environment. I'm going to be talking about what they are, the effects that they have on everyone around you, our food, and the people that we live with. And I'm going to talk about prevention and how the way we can stop that, and what I think is the best way to help prevent furthermore of getting more pollution. So, first thing I'm going to talk about is factory pollution. There's two different types of this. There's one-point source. One-point source goes directly into the ocean. It's taking chemicals straight out of the factory and dumping them. This is probably one of the worst ways that a chemical could ever get rid of emission, and that's one of the things that should stop them. So I'm going to also be talking to you about one non-point source. Non-point source is kind of when it leaks out into our environment through the air, through leakages through pipes, and we have government companies like the EPA that regulate these things to make sure that they don't go on. And I'm going to talk about that further on in our speech. So what I'm going to say to you today is we need to really be careful of what we release into the air. And when it's talked about big industrial companies that are constantly working with chemicals, releasing carbon monoxide into the air, which also creates smog when it reacts with sunlight. This is a very big problem that we got going on, and we need to make sure that we're in control of this. So, growing awareness of factory pollutants and its consequences has led to tighter restrictions on pollution over the world. I think this is something that's good because back in the 1800s, when industrialization first happened, all these companies were releasing emittents into the air, causing a bunch of harmful diseases to people, and no one really knew what was going on. They just thought, oh, we're trying to be a more prosperous people, because that's what us as humans try to do on a daily basis. And we need to be mindful that these things can cause harm to people that even aren't industrial. So, what we need to do with pollution is follow the effluent guidelines. That's a very big thing going on. It's a big prevention that the EPA uses in order to prevent all these chemicals from being released into things. So next I'm going to be going into what effects that these chemicals have on our environment, and that is a pretty big health concern for a lot of people. It can cause asthma, pneumonia, lung cancer, heart cancer, aging of the skin, and a lot of people don't really want this going on. So why should we rely on these huge companies to regulate on what they emit into the environment and not know what was going on in our government and how they control these kind of things? Another effect that it has on our environment is it gets into the air, which also affects our water because air turns into rain, which drains down to our water systems and affects our plants and soil, and even our waterways like have fish in it. So if we have toxic fish and you eat that, what do you think is going to happen to you? You're probably going to have some problems. So that's another thing that can really affect our environment, and I think that we should be mindful of that. So now I'm going to branch off into what preventions we need to do in order to keep these emittents from getting into our environment furthermore. I know that we are a big industrial country and it's hard to do, but we also need to understand that the further that we create this environment of toxins and whatnot, our family members and our future children and their children and their children are going to be affected by it. And is that really how we want to leave this planet? So one of the major ways of prevention is the EPA. What they do is the Environmental Protection Agency They estimate that about 50% pollution nowadays is caused by industry. And that's pretty big. If half of it is being caused, then we need to really focus on this, because that's a really big thing where it's leaking into our waterways, which is another really big way that industrial pollutes our environment. So you guys might be wondering why I'm wearing this shirt that says I am the Lorax. I have a quote here by Dr. Seuss that says, "Unless someone like you cares a lot, nothing is going to get better." It's not. What I'm trying to say is what I'm trying to preach to you guys today, that you need to really be mindful that you have a common role in this world to be able to take care of our environment and the future children. So, breaking down into the next thing, I want you guys to know that, so what I'm trying here to persuade is that we need to spend more money on the EPA than on other privilege spends that we do with our tax money. Because honestly, nowadays, with so much industrialization, this is a common problem. It needs to be recognized as something that is going to grow if we don't see it as a problem that it is. So yeah, I hope you guys understand my speech was informative. I broke down what industrial pollution is, the effects that it has on our environment, and what ways to prevent it. Do you all have any questions? Yes, sir.
Earlier you touched bases on the ethanol guidelines. Can you tell us in detail what exactly the ethanol guidelines are?
Oh yeah, I can definitely break that down for you. So the effluent guidelines is what you're talking about, are national standards that are developed by the EPA on industry by industry. They reduce pollutants in our environment, and that's what really the EPA follows by on how they should reduce our incidence of things. So what they do is pretty much send the SWPP in, which is a branch of the EPA. They go in and they do these tests, make sure they test the pH level of the soil around the building, see what's released, make sure that they're doing good management and not like performing hazardous tasking, cutting around the corners in a sense, to feed around and not have to release these chemicals in a fashionable, recyclable way. Good question.
Thank you.
Yes.
What are some other ways we can cut down industrial pollution?
Well, one thing that you can cut down on industrial pollution is the next time anything on a ballot comes up, is you can make a prop that we want to reduce this, and so that we want to have stricter guidelines that these companies have to follow in order so that they reduce less emissions, and that they're not beating around the bush and being paid off by other people, or our government officials aren't being paid off by these big corporate companies that can cause huge industrial harm. Yes, sir.
How did you get involved in the subject of your speech?
Well, actually, I have a speech class that I'm taking, and this is the reason why I first was brought to the topic. But doing further research on the information, I realized I like being an activist for this, because, you know, this is our planet, and we really need to do something to protect it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, which industries pollute more?
Well, pretty much you want to look at the big companies that are like car producers, big textile factories are another one. There's companies that produce chemicals in order for buildings and industrials, you know. So we really need to focus on those ones mostly. Alrighty guys, I hope that my speech was informative, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening.